we're going to be telling you a little bit about who Arctiq is. We're going to talk about platform engineering, the trends that we're seeing in the business, and how to use Apigee as part of the equation and what it brings to the developer experience that we're trying to create. Arctiq, as an organization, has been working with Google Cloud for a number of years now. I think we're closing on 5 years of very close partnership, maybe even 6. But Arctiq has grown since we started. We're now a nearly 300-person company across North America that has 3 main thrusts that we bring to market. So I want to tell you about Arctiq quickly up front so that you understand who we are as an organization and the context by which we're sharing this information. Arctiq has an enterprise security function, and this is really all about security end to end. We like to talk to your CISOs and help them organize their portfolio and project plans around driving the best in class enterprise security. We also have modern infrastructure, and we have platform engineering. The discussion today, we're focused on platform engineering, but I'll quickly run through what's under the other areas as well. Under enterprise security, right, we're all about helping organizations secure their information systems and manage risk. So we've got GRC consulting, identity and access management, security operations managed on your behalf. We run 24/7, 365 security operations centers. We also handle endpoint security, MXDR, and we can also do security testing like pen testing, vulnerability scanning, these sorts of things. So let's help you manage cloud security. It's a great set of capabilities. If you have a security problem that needs some focus, our team would be happy to help. On the modern infrastructure side, this is really about connectivity, access, visibility through classic infrastructure systems. So if you're part of a large enterprise that has campuses or you run maybe a chain of retail stores, anything that you're doing that requires infrastructure, we've got you covered. We do hybrid cloud infrastructure, so connecting on-prem to cloud. We've got productivity and collaboration solutions with Microsoft and Google. We've got networking end to end, including wireless networking. So campus access, as well as some pretty interesting solutions for legacy cabling systems as well. We also do endpoint management, all part of delivering productivity and collaboration to folks in your organizations. And we also have a surveillance practice that is used for things like school boards, hospitals, and so forth, where we deliver networked camera systems and the related capabilities. And then here, what we're talking about today is platform engineering, and this is the one that's near and dear to my heart, the one that I know best. And really, what we're trying to do is help you build best-in-class platforms that extend your SDLC to deliver the best developer experience using DevOps, DevSecOps, and AppSec techniques, helping you modernize applications and use Kubernetes, APIs, and observability, and SRE, data, and FinOps. These are all buzzword soup, I understand, but I just want to explain that it all fits together under the platform engineering portfolio. You likely have projects in your organization that need one or more of these things. If this particular presentation was of interest to you, I know we should probably talk a little bit more about what you're up to, and I'd love to learn more about your specific concerns. So please take advantage of the Q&A and talk to us about what's on your mind. Welcome. We have Cal and Jason. Thanks for joining. And Elena, hello. Hey, Wes. So first things first, we're talking about Apigee, and that's a Google product. I want you to know that Arctiq is, as I mentioned before, a longtime Google partner. We're premier status, and we've got certifications and specializations that we've earned. And so we believe we would be a great partner for you if you needed to do something on Google. Doesn't have to be Apigee. Anything Google related, we can likely help. So under platform engineering, we're primarily talking about curated experiences for developers, right? And so what is the platform, right? In this context, what we're talking about is all the underlying technology environments that support the delivery of business capabilities. This will include your API products, your on-prem systems, cloud systems, SaaS platforms, and other developer platforms, and any and all IT resources and services that might underpin the delivery of business capabilities to their consumers. It's a complex set of ideas that's hard to summarize succinctly. But just understand that when we talk about platform engineering, we're talking about anything that goes underneath the delivery of that capability. And what we want to do is reason about the capabilities that you're delivering in terms of a platform that is automated using our techniques. And this is the problem we're trying to solve. In many organizations on the left, we have sort of this challenge where you've got people who are trying to deliver capabilities and new product iterations, and they have lots of challenges along the way. Some of it comes from the silos in the organization. Some of it comes from not having clearly defined standards. And what we think is worth undertaking is an exercise in deliberate pathfinding and optimization of the workflows to create golden pathways to production. And we think that by doing this thoughtfully, you can really reduce the time to delivery. One of the things we're talking about here is, on the left-hand side, you've got this maze of decisions to make and approvals to get. And sometimes you get dead ends. Somebody says, hey, this architecture document's not sufficient, but you're not explaining what you're doing well enough. Go back and redo it, please. And so you end up adding time and cycles. And sometimes you're doing turn-in type ticketing where you're saying, hey, Mr. Security Team, I need this firewall rule opened so that this service that I've created can be consumed by the folks I intend to consume it. And when that happens, more and more daylight is used up, and you end up having a bunch of issues getting to production. And in one of our examples here, through thoughtful application of understanding what approvals were required, and what decisions were needed to be made. We invited all the stakeholders to the table to articulate exactly why those things were required. We showed them how to automate it, create common patterns, and then template them so that they could be consumed quickly and bypass a lot of the complex issues that folks struggle with on a day-to-day. And thus, like, reducing the amount of time for delivery. On the left, the capability was delivered in 4+ weeks where here we're now able to deliver it in less than a week, right? And that's a purpose like pathfinding. So here we come from like onboarding the fact that we've got to make the change. We go for the approval to get environment provisioning. That takes a couple weeks waiting for a cab advisory. Maybe there's somebody who second guessed your design. You're moving through, you're understanding what actions you're going to take, what the workflows are, writing out your standard operating procedure for your cab ticket, moving on down, making sure that everybody agrees with the design decisions you've made and are approving them. And you're heading back up over here and you're getting architecture and security reviews from third parties that don't really have an understanding of what you're doing or why you're doing it. They ask questions. That takes time. Eventually it goes to a cab, and then you get the approval and it's delivered, and it's taken you lots and lots of time. By a show of, from my friend Primogen there, give me ones in the chat if this experience is something you live through from day to day. I don't know how many of you experience this, but I know at least one of you does, because I know what organization you're at. But the goal in our platform engineering exercise is to invite everybody to the table, understand what it is that you're trying to do, turn it into templates that have common quality criteria that are checked automatically, right? So they have templated designs that are automatically approved. We have pipeline governance, which automatically approves as long as it conforms to policy. And then it does go to change management still, because, everybody's got their risk management to adhere to. Maybe we'll route that through a ServiceNow ticket for cab with all the evidence that it conforms. And then you're delivering your goal to production in much less time. Okay, so how we do it, right, is really about executing on this process. When we work with you on a platform engineering engagement, what we want to do is invite all of the stakeholders on the left here, the application teams, the communities and practices, all to the table to think about the product that you're delivering as a product, and understand what it means to manage it as a product. We want to put your product's customer at the center of the focus, understanding what their experience is with the product, and make sure that we're making plans accordingly. We want to observe how the product is used, research, working with the product owners, understanding what the customer experience is supposed to be like. If you don't have things like SRE metrics defined, such as your service level objectives or your error budgets, things like that, we're going to want to get that done. And we're going to develop items that we have put in a backlog for your platform. And I'm speaking in generalities because every company's journey is a little bit different. And an example like this, maybe the product we're talking about is a mobile application that's delivered to one of the app stores. We're going to want to understand what that is, what the quality checks are, how that product is delivered, and how it's consumed, and how your customers are having a great experience. And then we're going to develop a plan to close any gaps, put that in the platform backlog, and then we're going to develop and ship that with you to contribute to the value streams. And we're going to collect feedback back to the groups and through again. This is a very common way of doing things. I'm trying very desperately not to call it agile, but it is an agile approach to delivering value in an iterative fashion. And this platform engineering approach really does require you to think of the elements that you're pushing as products, and managing it this way. So one of the ways that we handle this in platform engineering is by the implementation of internal developer portals. And this is really a place where a catalog of capabilities that can be delivered is kept. And anybody that is going to be using and deploying from this catalog will have access to understand what's here, who owns them, where they are in the life cycle, and you can select this and it'll execute the automation in a reliable and repeatable way to orchestrate the deployment of that item. There's the whole um, deal here is that we're presenting these things as products to people to consume. What we don't want to do is present individual elements of a solution like S3 bucket or virtual machine. That's not what we're putting in the catalog. Putting in the catalog is complete templated solutions that can be delivered as one item, and therefore the complexity of what goes into that solution doesn't have to be understood by the individuals consuming it. So if they're just trying to iterate on code to improve a certain element, they don't need to worry about what actually goes in behind it. Um, and in the example here, I'm showing Backstage, but there are others as well. We know Port, Humanitech, as well as a lot of customers are looking at Backstage these days as part of their internal developer portal strategy. And the platform engineering work is what it takes to wrap it all up as a product that can be delivered repeatably uh, over and over again. And we'd love to show you how to do this. And for APIs, we think you should think of them as products as well, right? And why we like Apigee is because it enables you to publish API products for consumption with end-to-end security and operational capabilities. You are getting the best like world-class system from Google. And we'll go over the details of what it provides in a little bit. You're hiding complexity. This one's really important. A lot of organizations end up in very complex situations because they uh, publish applications and then instead of having an API strategy, what they do is they stovepipe integrations from system to system to system. And developers have to have foreknowledge of where services are. They have to understand what versions they are, and they have to lockstep change with those other teams as things change. One of the things about moving towards an API product strategy is that you're going to abstract away the implementation details, right? You want to loosen those couplings so that teams can work independently and without coordination, blocking, and overhead of having to coordinate changes together. What you do is you make long-lived API contracts and versioning so that your teams can move independently. If you are already thinking about API strategy or already have one underway, this was the primary value proposition that was there. Some of you may be working with other sort of enterprise messaging strategies instead of using APIs. Maybe you're using the idea of pub, sub, or queues. Similar idea. It's about loosening couplings so that teams can move independently. Um, we think that API strategy is essential in today's world, especially as we look forward to the fact that consumers of your capabilities may not be other developers in the future too. You're going to want to be able to publish APIs that can be consumed by AI agents and so on. Like there's a bunch of forward thinking you can do for your organization, and then publish those API definitions to developer portals for your consumers to explore, use, and innovate with. And that includes in the future, if you're not already thinking about it, AI agents working on behalf of either members of your own organization or outside consumer pools. You're going to want to publish APIs in a way that they can be consumed by person or machine alike. Um, does anybody disagree with this or have anything that they'd like to ask or say about this? I'll pause for a moment and monitor the chat or QA. Adrian asks, any tips on how we can support these AI agents with your API design? Well, that's a complex topic, but it really comes down to how well you document the API. Your machine generated Swagger definitions are not going to be enough. You need to actually express in the documentation a lot of detail about the intent of what the API is for, how it is to be used, what your expectations are. Again, because we're talking about large language models with natural language understanding, you're going to want to do that in the future. And so that it can reason about, and reason, I don't actually mean reason, I mean statistically predict why it would use this interface over another. Which Google product this platform workflow uses in the background, or Apigee itself as a separate Google engine? I think if you're thinking about the workflow orchestration behind a developer portal, Mahendra, that is going to be more about your particular organization's use and platforms. In today's discussion, when I talk about publishing APIs, I'm talking about using Google's Apigee product. And by extension, we may talk about moving the back ends of those APIs over to Google Cloud, either hosted in Cloud Run or Google Kubernetes Engine, maybe on-prem with GKE Enterprise. There are lots of options for how this is done, and the workflow orchestration could be done with Google, or it could be done with the orchestration engine built into the developer portal platform. It really depends on the particular project we're working on and the goals of that project. I'm not trying to not answer your question. I'm just trying to tell you that there's a lot of considerations at play. So Apigee thanks, man. Jason has said Apigee can be delivered as a service. Yes. Do we recommend PaaS versus SaaS? Okay. Jason, your question there is about how Apigee is delivered. Apigee really has two offerings that are the primary focus. One is the Apigee SaaS offering, which is Google managed, attached to your project. And then there is the Apigee hybrid, which is where you host the runtime. The reason for choosing one over the other typically is down to usage patterns and latency sensitivity. Sometimes organizations will want their API platform to be right next to their back ends on-prem. And in that scenario, we would deploy Apigee Hybrid, which still has the control plane and configuration up on Google Cloud, but the actual runtime that does the request processing is on-prem. Or the other option is to use the Apigee managed solution. And that is where Google manages the runtime in their tenant, and you attach it to your project. You can still wire it up to your external or legacy environments on-prem or up to Google Cloud as you see fit. It really comes down to an organization's usage pattern and latency tolerances is what that's all about. So when we think about, why Apigee, what is it bringing for us? And really, it's common amongst many of the API platforms. They have a similar story, but Google's is just that much better because you're talking about the planet scale solution they bring with their premium tier networking as well. But yeah, they provide a consistent interface for all outside service consumers. It's secured by its very nature, using both the normal MTLS style authentication and authorization, and then API keys. You get to control access completely, route it, rate limit it, impose quotas. You can even monetize, as we go down the list there. There is a whole bunch of capabilities that it unlocks as well. And then there's also something associated, which I'm not going to go into today, but I'd love for you to talk to us about it, is Google's application integration too, where they have a sort of low code, no code thing that you can wire up as an API to actually perform orchestrated functions against common backends like Salesforce and similar. So there's a whole bunch of reasons to consider the Apigee platform. And one of the really powerful items that it brings, which a lot of people are concerned about, is API security. So everybody knows that if you place an API out there for consumption, that somebody's going to fuzz it, somebody's going to attack it, somebody's going to try and find a way to get one over on you. And that's why Google's advanced API security, which uses machine learning and other techniques to manage your runtimes and take mitigation actions, right? So if there's bot traffic or whatever, you can set it to block the traffic from hitting your particular APIs. Extremely powerful. And this is in addition to what they also do with the Cloud Armor technology that you can put in front of all your projects. So not wanting to go too hard to sell on Apigee, but they're a great partner of ours, and we really like what you're able to do with their platform. What I would offer is, if you haven't taken a look at the capabilities of the platform, you should book us for a call, and let's talk about it and talk about how it might help you in your business. And then the goal is, once you've published an API and created its capability and deployed it, you also want to publish the API in your developer portal and make it available for consumption. The goal here is to make sure that other developers are aware that the API exists, that it's available, who owns it, how it's consumed. And then what we can do is manage the product appropriately. As you can see on the lower right-hand side here, I'm using an example backstage demo here. There aren't any consumers, but as people use the IDP to consume an API, they can register their interest and become consumers of the API. There's providers of the API that are publishing it, and then there's consumers that are consuming it, and you can use that as part of your product management lifecycle. Come in here and take a look and see who's depending on your API, what they're doing with it. You can link out to the source for the API. You can view the docs. You can do all sorts of things that are intended to enable independent teams to rapidly innovate using the capabilities that you create, and then give you all of the information that you need in order to manage your product. I'm mixing the line because Apigee, I'm showing this in the IDP context. Apigee has its own version of the developer portal as well, and there's nothing stopping you from also doing that, which is taking your open API definitions and publishing them to a Swagger like interface that shows you the API definitions, the documentation, and even provides code samples, as you would have here as well. for various language types on how to consume that. Here's the curl command to consume this API. We think that this is the right thing to do, is to manage your APIs like products and publish them in the developer portal so that they can be consumed by others in your organization that are looking to create innovative new products. If they didn't know your product existed, they would if you published it in the catalog under APIs. And so the outcomes we're looking to drive here, APIs are published for consumption in a consistent, repeatable manner. You've got your security and operations capabilities are world-class from the Apigee product itself. And that the developer documentation available to API consumers is part of the portal platform. So a developer can innovate quickly. Because one of the other things we're trying to drive here is developer focus. We want their experience to be fantastic. We want to reduce the cognitive load by handling the implementation details in the background. They shouldn't be concerning themselves about which firewall rule, which bucket, this sort of thing, when all they're trying to do is build a business capability using the functions that are made available to them, right? They shouldn't need to reason about the implementation. So if you template it, make it reusable, repeatable, publish it in the IDP for their consumption, they should be able to do that. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't give them a peek under the covers so they can understand the implementation details and make sure that it aligns with their expectations. But the goal is to reduce the number of times they have to reason about what the implementation is, so they can focus on the business services, right? We want them to think about those outcomes versus how it's delivered. And then what we want to do is reduce the time to value. By providing these golden pathways, we want to deliver those capabilities as quickly as possible so that the value can be realized. We're all in the business of enabling the businesses we serve, and this is what this is about. I would say that this is the end of this in terms of slide content. What I would offer is that we've got some time here, and I'm open to answering any of your questions about any of the material we've covered or anything else that you might find interesting. You can use the Q&A or chat function to do that. My offer is that we would be happy to work with you on any of your projects, whether they're focused on platform engineering, creating an internal developer portal, or publishing API products. We'd be happy to help you. Just visit us at arctiq.com and book a consult with us. We'd be delighted to have that conversation, both for this and for any of the other topics we talked about: enterprise security, modern infrastructure, anything about platform engineering. Any tips on patterns to avoid with API design in terms of exposing too much business logic on the consumer? Okay, Adrian, that's a fun question. So almost everybody will talk to you about domain-driven design, and the fact that you don't want to have leaky abstractions, that you want to create APIs that are balanced specifically on the domain that they're intended to solve, not how they're implemented. It's a very complex discussion. I can't really give you generalized advice. We'd have to talk about your specific context and what you're doing, and I'd be happy to do a design workshop with you at any time. And conversations are typically free if you want to talk about that sometime. And if you've never read the book Domain Driven Design, highly recommend it. How do you incorporate Apigee into DevOps? Silver, thanks for the question on the Q&A. Silver, incorporating Apigee into DevOps to automate the process, there's a couple of ways of handling this. When we typically do Apigee implementations, especially when we're using the software as a service function, we have a set of IP that we use that uses infrastructure as code, policy as code for deploying, and then we use GitOps based pipelines for API definitions that want to be streamlined. And then when you publish them in the IDP, you're going to create automation scripts that are variable driven that will use the management APIs on the Apigee platform to push and pull information. There's no perfect way of doing it. It is custom to your specific set of circumstances, as would be your Apigee deployment, because your Apigee deployment is going to be configured and wired specifically for your situation. You may have backends on any one of the cloud providers. We've worked with customers that are using Apigee and there's no Google in sight. They're on AWS and Azure, but they're still using Apigee, and we have to wire all that up correctly. And so it really depends on your specific situation, but it is scripting techniques, variable driven, repeatable, testable, and that's how that's done. Next question, cloud deploy is part of the deployment for GCP. You can. Our core technique for doing automation as part of our professional services has been generalized to Terraform because it's not specific to any one cloud. And we kind of work in every cloud. So we generally think that way when we're thinking about infrastructure as code, but you absolutely could trigger a cloud deploy job in order to get stuff done if that's the way that you wanted to do that. Silver. Is it handled like infrastructure, not like an app deploy? Well, Apigee setup is more like infrastructure than it is like app because you are wiring up projects, tenants, proxies, security, front ends, and things like that. It's more infrastructure than it is app, but the individual proxies that you deploy onto Apigee is more like an app deploy. I hope that makes sense. So your Apigee platform and runtime setup is infrastructure, and then the individual API proxies that you create are more like app. Okay, well, I really appreciate the questions and your interactivity during this webinar. If you would like to see more, please feel free to contact us. We'd love to hear your ideas for topics, and we'd be happy to have another conversation with you. Thank you so much for your time today. And with that, we'll give you the rest of the hour back, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.